Hi, thanks everyone. So yeah, it's my first time in Australia. It's a travesty. I didn't actually see anything but boardrooms and office buildings. I actually never made it to Bondi Beach, which is shocking. I actually have to go to the airport in a couple of hours. So Sunita gave a very nice intro of Vice, who we are. I will repeat some of these things and then talk you through what we're thinking about media, what we're learning as a media company right now, and then how that applies to brands and how we translate that. So we are a media company. We started 20 years ago as a punk magazine in Montreal, Canada. We've expanded into Australia in 2003. We have a staff of about 40. We're expanding to about 70 people in Australia in the next few months. We just launched Vice News, launching Vice News in this country as well. At the heart of our business right now is making premium digital content. And that happened in 2006. Spike Jones, our creative director, came to Shane and essentially said, like, you're filming all your articles, right, when you talk to people. Of course, we always say yes. So Shane said, like, of course we do. Turned around and said, what the hell are we doing? I don't know how to film anything. But we bought some cameras and then built some edit suites and went to very public video production school. We've recently launched a news channel. We launched that in April of this year in partnership with YouTube. It's been the fastest growing news channel in history on YouTube. We reached about 150 million video views since April, just crossed 1 million subscribers. Last week, I think I'm confused with time zones. Yes, last week. And we're launching in Australia, Spain, Brazil, France today, and several more countries over the next couple of months. So why did we launch a news channel? When we look at the last 2 decades, we see the march of 2 narratives. One is the crisis of information, and the second is the liberation of information. What we've seen over the last decade is a complete systems failure. There's the war on terror, there's climate change, there's the economic collapse that affected all young people across the world, and many more, of course. What was the really big casualty in our eyes? It was the trust that's been lost. Trust in politicians, trust in experts, so-called experts, trust in systems that people relied on, and of course in corporations and brands. And most importantly, we've seen a total lack of distrust in the media as a result of it. Obviously, the media crisis is acute. Over the past 10 years, we've seen a complete decline in credibility for news organizations. In particular, these are numbers from the US. Looking at US channels, I bet it's exactly the same in Australia. It certainly is for Europe. This crisis of information is mapped against another narrative over the last decade, and that is the liberation of information. So you have computing, you have bandwidth, you have connectivity, you have social media being always on, and people sharing information peer-to-peer in a way they've never been before, young people. Out of this liberation, a lot of media alternatives have shown up. Obviously, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's YouTube, there's Instagram, and so forth, and there's WikiLeaks. So you have to think about this generation that you're marketing to today that is the biggest, the most, has the most spending power currently out there, has grown up against the backdrop of these 2 narratives. And you've seen this famous cover, I'm sure, the me generation. I think it's from last year. And there's a lot of misconceptions about that audience, about what it is. It's narcissistic, only thinks about themselves, and they have no idea what they're doing. Obviously, we don't think that's true, because that's what we build our company on. So do they actually care about anything other than themselves? So what we usually do, we don't make this stuff up, we just ask people. So what happened? It was a completely overwhelming, a total liberation of media that happened over the past 10 years of information, and there was mediation that became necessary. So then the real mediators in this new paradigm are, of course, Facebook and Twitter, because 75% of young people say they get all their information from these feeds. Now the issue is, that was very exciting for a very long time, to feel like you can filter everything, you can get everything, aggregate everything in your own personalized feed. But we believe what really happened here is a distanciation, is a total lack of understanding of what the actual issues is a reduction to headlines. It's actually no depth of actually getting into the issues, reading the issues, understanding the issues, being engaged with the issues, anything like that. So in a weird way, it's gotten us even further, this overload of information has gotten us even further from actual information or understanding of issues. In this paradigm, what we think, we're actually losing empathy because the world is completely abstracted. We don't really understand what it is anymore, and it's actually hard to care about issues and understand them. So what we believe as Vice, the way to cut through is to use video, use long-form video, tell stories like that. And we like to call this video as an empathy machine. So in this clutter of information and this total overload of all these things that are coming through your feed, we think what video has the power to do is to slow down the headlines, expand the headlines. It allows you to connect more deeply with cultures, with people, with stories, and it creates immersive, relatable experiences. And we do think that video, our entire business is built on video, and we believe that both the future of news as well as the future of any sort of communications, even brand communications, is built around video. So now I'll speak a little bit more about brands after the news page, after this conversation about news. So obviously that is a huge opportunity for you people in the room, for marketers, for brands, for media companies, as everything is broken down, as the whole media is reinvented. If you follow these rules of engagement, we call them, some of them, they're not too dissimilar from some of the stuff you heard this morning already. So if you think about the standard ad model today, obviously slightly oversimplified, but it is one piece of communication that you put out. You spend 90% of your budget, or 90% of the activity around it is paid. There's no lasting value. There's no story behind this. And it's really just this one hit. So what's really happening, of course, in the ad market is there's a CPM race to the bottom. The web eats itself. TV continues to thrive. There's ad blockers. There's commodity. Prices are dropping. It's very unclear how current advertising actually does anything for you, banner advertising, and so forth. In the US alone, we estimate there's a funding gap of about $20 billion between the media that young people actually watch and engage with on mobile and digital and the other media. Referred this in the video. Obviously, young people today have a bullshit detector that is very, very finely tuned. What that means, they don't want to be lied to. They see through it. They need stuff to be transparent completely, because if you're not transparent, if you're not honest, they will publish it back and collect that information and let you know what they think of you. The dog on a skateboard is not what you should be doing, but I like this picture. So obviously, the very first thing is find great stories to tell. Find premium stories to tell. And what I mean by premium stories is things you can't find anywhere else. That's what people want to hear from you. That's what people want to hear from brands, from media companies. And we use this word premium over and over again because it means it should be high-quality storytelling. It should be engaging. It should be immersive. Because when you just put stuff out there, you're really competing with this dog on a skateboard. And I found out he's very famous, actually. Or cats on keyboards and all of this kind of stuff. You're commoditized. You're just up against these people. You're competing with that. You're paying the same prices, and it means nothing. This is a pretty obvious slide, but it's important to show the new way of storytelling. Obviously, on the left-hand side, you can see what television advertising used to be. You would tell one story one day. You would show it for a campaign. And today, I'm sure every speaker will say this in many ways, you have to always be on, always be communicating around the time on all platforms, in many different forms, and so forth. One important thing, I think, what we've learned as Vice over the years is like we used to treat our editorial owned and operated platforms as editorial, and then social was just this other thing, right? That other people did, another department did, and it was funnier, it was weirder, but it wasn't. We didn't really treat it that seriously, if you will, until we realized that whichever words I put onto Facebook or into a tweet are as important as my lead article on our homepage today. And so we've, over the years, developed editorial strategy, programming strategies for each of these different channels, for each of these different communities, for each different platform. That doesn't just mean different assets that you're creating for each, for Vine, for Instagram, for Facebook, for Twitter, etc. It really means thinking about each of these as your media channel and programming them, understanding when the audience likes to see things, what they like to see, how often they like to see it, and so forth. We've seen this to be a total game changer for our traffic and how we communicate with people, because people don't actually go between all of these different platforms. And of course, the stories you tell, make them very, very relevant. Make them immersive. Make them you're part of Millennials, part of the story, and don't do it from a top-down approach. And the last slide, I'll show you what we think the model of the future is creating, it's all around creating genuine culture, and that's very important for brands to do. You have a place in culture. People expect you to create culture that's in experiential, that's in content, that's in every different aspect you're doing, and create long-term partnerships and build real owned media, and then generate mass earned media. And again, these are generalized numbers, of course. It's not some sort of formula, but that's where it should turn to. So we definitely believe in video, in platform creation, in constant communication, in storytelling. And we absolutely believe, and I will talk about some of these examples, that brands have a right to do that just as much as we have as a media company. Thank you.